everybody. So this panel is about the importance of good UX and customer experience on the mobile shopping process. So we have some awesome people on the panel today. So let's just kick it off with some brief intros. Just name, role, and where you work.
Yeah, so Mohammad Hashemi. I am the director of product for our checkout and payments products at Shopify.
Hi everyone, my name is Camille Hearst. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Kit. It's kit.com, K-I-T. And Kit is a place where you can discover products to buy from people whose opinions you trust. Think YouTubers, online influencers, and other experts.
I'm Nilla Ali. I'm the affiliate commerce lead at BuzzFeed Product Labs.
And I'm Ben Mills. I'm head of product at Venmo.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys. So let's jump right into it. So with a lot of like the recent innovations, I'm going to call out two specifically, but Shopify's launch of Shop Codes, which is a free app that allows merchants to create QR codes, right? As well as Venmo's expansion into physical stores like Williams-Sonoma. Talk to me about what tool sets you guys have seen really driving success in helping bridge the online and offline world, or like the digital and physical realms. So we'll open it up to you guys.
So from our standpoint, the QR code bit is interesting because that's really taken off in Eastern markets. It never really worked out in North America because the experience of opening up your phone and then opening up an app and then scanning a QR code wasn't exactly that great. But given that it's now available natively within the camera that the iPhones are shipped with, we think that there's a possibility that the same results that are seen in other markets could take place here too. So our product there is actually less of an app. It's you literally get a QR code the moment you add a product on Shopify when you're adding your inventory. You can share that QR code with friends. If you have a retail space, that QR code could be used to surface additional information about the product that you're not able to present in your retail space because you have limited space. You could add it to your packaging when you're shipping products so that your customers can reorder pretty quickly. We see some potential there. It's a bit too early to tell whether that'll really take off in North America. Right. Other things that we've seen really work out are pop-ups. We definitely see those propagating quite a bit. We focus on physical goods e-commerce businesses, and one of the realities that they run into at some point is that their customers, or a segment of their customers, want to touch and feel their product. And rather than opening up a retail presence, a permanent retail presence, we've seen a lot of success with strategically placed pop-ups. We've seen Indochino do really cool things with like their traveling tailor pop-up, where you got measured, you got to touch the fabric, profile was built for you in person, and then you took that online and you actually made the purchase through their e-commerce presence. So a lot of interesting things. I think it's still pretty early days to see what works and what could be replicated by other businesses. Yep.
Ben, down there?
Yeah, I think that for Venmo, I think we see the mechanism that payments happen on Venmo really doesn't matter. I think the more places you can use Venmo, the better. So this is why using Venmo to pay in apps, something we launched last year, that is very interesting. We're going to be our PayPal executives have explained in the last two earnings calls that we're going to be expanding that to include all PayPal merchants in the US over the next couple of months. And then I think even doing something, experimenting with like physical debit cards. I think all those things are ways we can really let the user choose how they want to pay. So if they want to buy something in store, they want to split a bill at a restaurant, however we can do that, we're going to explore, because at the end of the day, I think driving that volume back into the Venmo app and letting people interact in the Venmo app is, I think, the real goal for us.
Yeah, for sure. And it was interesting what we were talking a little bit about backstage with the ability to tip in some of these physical kind of locations, like your barber shop or whatnot. It's certainly fascinating. We're definitely going through this kind of rapid iteration where I think the early days it was like, well, we're just going to put beacons in our physical location, and that'll solve the gap. But that never really created a great consumer experience, so you have to be able to kind of tie it all together. Another question I would have for everybody here, so there's been a lot about creating, highly addictive app experiences where you're basically just kind of like mindlessly scrolling. That basically, like the idea is like you trigger a dopamine rush, right? And so a lot of the application of this has been applied to content experiences and social media. But is there an opportunity to incorporate this into commerce and into the mobile shopping arena? And Camille, maybe we start with you.
Yeah, we were talking about this backstage. I think there's some interesting ethical questions around how much we want people addicted to their phones nonstop. But on Kit, actually, what we focus on is the power of curation and authentic recommendations from people who you trust. And so what Kit looks like in many ways is that traditional social media experience. But in fact, people are coming to Kit with purchase intent and end up at Kit because of a content creator they're really excited about. So I can give an example of this one YouTuber. His name is Craig Adams. I'm betting probably no one in here has ever heard of him. He's got about 50,000 subscribers on YouTube, which is not a ton. And he will earn $100,000 from Kit this year in affiliate revenue from the sales that he's generating from his kits. And the way he's doing this is using social media and using a content strategy to talk to his fans, and then driving them to Kit where they get a really great commerce and shopping purchase experience. So there's that blend there of some of the more traditional social media content tactics with a commerce and shopping angle.
Cool.
Yeah. So with BuzzFeed, I think the nature of a lot of our apps is you are consuming it similar to you do on social when you're going through a feed. I think what we're tasked with is creating that amazing content, but we're starting to realize there's things people want to do with their content beyond just consuming, and that's actually purchasing the products that we're recommending in our shopping content. We're even finding in quizzes oftentimes we're recommending like what Friends character do you most associate with, and there's some sort of commerce element that's tied back into that. So I think it's kind of predicting what would our users actually want when they're in that experience. I think on desktop, it's really easy that you just open another tab and you go do your research, find the product that you want. On mobile, it's such like a limited screen. Right. So the more we can optimize that experience for the end user and that end delight that they're looking for, that's around commerce, the better we are serving our readers.
Yeah, I think Nilla makes a really good point, which is on desktop, you have tons of space to do research, right? You can open multiple tabs, you can look at a page and browse and filter and sort by a million different options, but in limited space, you're really relying on the curation of the platform you're on to surface and serve the right content to the right user in that moment. And so I think the BuzzFeed approach is editorial. We have opened up and created a platform where any content creator can come on and actually do that editorial themselves.
Got it. And then Venmo, you obviously have the social feed. And,
yeah.
It's really interesting. Like for me, like I'll go without even realizing it from like Instagram to Twitter, back to Instagram 3 more times, and then like you exacerbate all of your social feeds, and then like the last one you check when you're like bored or lonely is like, well, what are people doing on Venmo? And it's not like the highlight of the day, obviously, but it's like, you might as well check it out. Maybe there's like some funny comments or something. But how has the social feed either driven engagement or usage?
A few different ways. I think there's certainly a lot of funny uses of the Venmo feed, and I think a classic thing we hear a lot about is people feeling FOMO from seeing their friends all do fun things, and they're sitting at home looking through their feeds. But I think the thing that we're really interested in figuring out is something similar both of you talked about, which is how do we help people find stuff they really want? Which is like I think advertising generally I think is like perceived as a bad word because we weren't very good at it as an industry, and I think we're starting to get a lot better. And I think both of the approaches you've described are really interesting. I think where Venmo sees its place in this is while we get the Venmo feed is way less populated than your Facebook feed or your Twitter feed. Most Venmo users have way less friends than a Facebook account or a Twitter account would, but the activity is that much more meaningful. Where like as we start to roll out some of these commerce products, the theory is if I'm buying something, if I'm using a new ride sharing service, then if you were my friend, saying like, oh well, Ben's willing to literally pay that place. That's such much stronger signal that you would be willing to try it too. That's a theory, and I mean I think we're still testing it and trying it, but that's how I think we would do it.
Cool. And so when you first launch an app, you design a lot of the app for first-time experience, user acquisition, seamless onboarding, right? Because there is no existing user base. But then as the app grows and the business persists, you have to kind of reorient the user experience to account for new and first-time usage as well as like re-engagement. How do you guys think about product evolution and evolving that user experience to drive either engagement for existing users or to try to almost resurrect lapsed users? I'll open it up to everybody.
I think for us, one of the big principles is that re-engagement should not be disruptive to what the consumer is trying to do or the merchant is trying to do in our case. So when you're dealing with things like notifications to get someone to re-engage with an app or just email marketing, honestly, because that's probably one of the most effective ways to re-engage in the commerce space, shockingly. Which is why MailChimp's killing it. What you want to do is make sure that that's not too disruptive. So some of the things that we've seen that really work is like people who've taken that order confirmation email or notification and have turned that into almost like a drip campaign of what do you think of the product? Can you give me a review? Here's a discount code for that review in case you want to come back and use it. Also, the review is helpful to get new customers that are going to engage with that product. So a lot of creative things that fall into that natural flow of what the consumer or merchant was going to do, rather than something that's kind of disruptive that like, hey, you haven't logged into my app in 5 days, check it out again.
So using like marketing automation tools as kind of a seamless extension of the app where they feel like it's not necessarily a completely separate experience, but part of the kind of same holistic approach.
Absolutely.
Yeah, one of the things we think about in similar vein, I think I would summarize a lot of what you said is relevant content. And so what we do is look at actions that people have taken on Kit and use that to kind of drive what's in those email campaigns and in the notifications that we send. So because you can follow your favorite content creators, because you can look at what they've put in their kits, comment, like, even click on them, we take as a signal and use that to re-engage users. So yeah, just relevancy is how we're trying to think about that and obviously work on it.
Cool.
Yeah, I would say relevancy and also leveraging data to understand, for us from like a commerce standpoint, what are people actually buying, where are they converting, what retailers are they clearly responding well to. I think the more we listen to those signals and create content around that, we build that loyalty and trust where people are thinking I'm in that shop or that discovery phase of my shopping process. I know BuzzFeed has great recommendations. I've always gone there. It's a good experience. That's how you attract users to come back.
Yeah, I think everything was said was really good. I don't have a ton to add. I mean, I think I would say that for Venmo, we'd like to find ways to just leverage our social data, to find ways to say, you bought something from this merchant and your friend, a year ago, and now your friend is. Like, would you like to check them out again? Like using that to narrow in. I think we're all saying on relevancy. Like, when is it relevant? I think that's the name of the game.
Got it. Yeah, and so like with that relevancy, I mean, like relevancy and personalization kind of go hand in hand. And so that obviously plays like a big role when you think about long-term success. So like in a question that's like pretty near and dear to my heart, like how do you guys think about building your data strategy in order to drive that personalization and relevancy?
So this is a core part of Shopify's offering effectively. We position ourselves as the back office for the business, so collecting data through the various channels that sales are being made, centralizing all of that, and giving the merchant a view of all that in a single dashboard is a key part of what we offer. I think in terms of like what we offer on the personalization front, we're barely scratching the surface there. We see the consumer from the moment they hit the store all the way to fulfillment. And there's a mountain of data there, but we're trying to figure out exactly where to leverage that in a non-creepy and augmentive manner. So some of the stuff that we've done that's been fairly successful is on the checkout front, where we've partnered with a lot of companies to accelerate the checkout flow because they have consumer information like PayPal and Apple Pay and so on and so forth. But the problem you run into is then you have like a NASCAR of stickers on the cart page or on the product page. So what we've been able to do with this data and what we're trying to further is like, how do we kind of personalize that purchase experience based on what we know about you? Because it's very likely that we have seen you in the past on one of our stores. We know how you like to pay. We know the shipping methods you prefer. We know how you like to get notified. So surfacing that intelligently within the product is kind of where we're at. I think there's a lot more that we could be doing with the data we have, but it's definitely a core part of our offering and our strategy moving forward.
I think we're in a similar position. So there are two sides to Kit. There are content creators who are putting together the kits, and then there's consumers who are coming on and shopping from those kits. And so similar to what you were saying about giving the data to merchants, where we are now is providing data to the content creators so that they know as individual storefronts themselves in many ways what's performing best. And that's actually something that we're coding up right now and getting ready to launch. Longer term, what we're looking at as well is the data we can provide to brands. So if you think about each person on Kit as a storefront, each person who's created a kit, as a brand, I'd be curious to know which of those kits are performing well, which social media influencers are endorsing a lot of my products. All of these are authentic, organic recommendations, so it's really a true endorsement. And so that's where the longer term vision of our data strategy is.
Yeah, I think the core of BuzzFeed is obviously identity-driven content. It's like the best gifts to buy for your mom who loves cats. Like it's very specific to certain audiences. So I think, again, we have incredibly valuable data of like, this person is this identity, they've shared it with someone who is within that identity, and then we know exactly what they're buying. I think content sites in general can do more with that data, but we're almost in that full path of like, either search or discovery and then subsequent purchase, so we really know who these people are. So I think we have an amazing platform to better target people for what they want to find and what they ultimately purchase.
For Venmo, I mean, I think data has been a key part of how we build products for a while, and I think it's a key function for us, and we've used it to make awesome business decisions, and we're now just getting to the point, and this isn't quite out yet, but we're starting to explore things like using our data to actually make the feed more relevant, to do things like algorithmic feeds and things like that, to weight things we actually think are more interesting on both our global feed and even our friends feed. So hopefully by doing that, we're gonna see more engagement, more social activity, which will lead to stronger signal for recommendations.
So yeah, thank you for all of that. It's super impressive, like what each of you guys are doing. From a customer experience standpoint, from a user experience standpoint, what are you guys seeing in market from other companies, not your own, that you guys are seeing really impressive? So if you can kind of call out what the feature is and what the company is or what the app is, I'd love to hear like who you guys are really impressed by.
I had a recent great experience that I wasn't expecting. I was on Google Maps searching where somewhere was, and my Uber popped up to be able to like just get an Uber within the Google Maps experience. Booked it, and you could like track your whole trip within the Google Maps experience, which was a very simple thing, but just not having to switch between my apps. And again, it was like, should I take a taxi? Should I walk? Should I Uber? Just because it was such a simple use case or the easiest option, I ended up making that transaction, and it was like a very delightful experience. So that is my recent good experience.
I have one. So I started off my career at Apple, working on iTunes. And at the time, iTunes was a very editorial-driven environment. Everything you saw in the iTunes store was literally handpicked by a staff of probably 50 or so editors who would pick the content. Later, I worked at YouTube and at Google, and it was absolutely the antithesis to that, where everything was driven by the algorithms and by the machine. And who I've been really impressed by recently is Spotify with some of the things they're doing around the Discover Weekly, which is blending both of those approaches in a way that I think is very smart. They're using hand-picked editorial and curation on top of this algorithmic layer, and I think it's been very effective at generating buzz and word of mouth. And we at Kit obviously believe a lot in curation, and in a world of so much content, how do you get people the right content for them? And I think this is they've proven out a really smart way of doing that.
So Camille took mine, but I'll have a go as well. Amazon is the leader in the space when it comes to buying experiences in commerce, at least. One of their products particularly that I think is somewhat misunderstood is one-click buy. So that's like on the product page, you hit that button and boom, it's done. And the reality is like that product is suitable for a habituated customer, or else it's pretty creepy. The first couple of times I used it, I was terrified. I hit the button, didn't know what happened. I saw the blue banner. It said, editor, cancel your order. Hit edit, reviewed the information. I'm like, okay, things are good. Second time, same thing. What I saw that they've done recently, which I really like, is in the US marketplace, there seems to be two flows for that button now. One where you get a review step if you're not a habituated customer, and I suspect this is like algorithmically determined, and once you become a habituated customer, then you get that extension, that one-click buy experience, because you know your shipping method, you know your card and whatnot. So I thought that was pretty impressive. I think they probably should have done that from the get-go, but it was a delightful experience to play with, and in my case, I observed my mom do it, so she wasn't creeped out.
Okay, good.
I would probably say iMessage. I think Apple's just doing some phenomenal stuff with iMessage. And even though they are going to compete with us, I think that the flow that I've seen at least of how they can detect that you're talking about money and offer the Apple Pay P2P flow is fantastic. I mean, I think that's such a phenomenal user experience. I can't wait to try it.
Cool. So kind of bringing the conversation back to your own companies and your own products. What do you see as the relationship between app and web and consumers kind of jumping back and forth, and how does that inform how you guys think about product design?
I guess, again, I think for content sites, it's difficult for us because once we drive someone away from our content, it's out of our hands what that experience looks like. I think driving someone to an app obviously potentially has higher conversions or higher order values, but it could become a very disruptive experience to the user. Driving to mobile web, again, if it's not built in a way that's commerce optimized, we just drove someone away from our content, and now we have a very frustrated end user. So I think we have to understand, like, what does that flow look like on mobile? How can it be best optimized? And almost take it on a case-by-case basis, because the growth of every retailer is so different in the app space versus the mobile web space. So it's great to lean on partners like Button who can help us with that flow and make it more optimized for the user. But as a content site, we definitely have that challenge because it's almost out of our hands how the next step is happening.
For us in commerce, I think our world is now mobile web. The vast majority of our traffic and the orders that we see across our merchant base is driven through mobile web. Desktop is second, and then the native app is actually particularly challenging when you're dealing with the SMB space in retail, because it takes a lot to justify a consumer actually installing a native app on their phone for a single store retailer, not an Amazon with millions of products. And we see the native app as as something that the habituated customer, someone you've already built that brand relationship with, would use, whereas the mobile web experience is what most consumers are going to use when they're shopping on your store. Yeah.
I think for Venmo, it's especially for our commerce products, we want to actually not get in the way. Like, we want as much. This is why we're experimenting with a debit card. Is like we actually don't want to get in the way of the checkout experience. We want to facilitate that, and then after the fact, when you're ready to celebrate that purchase or talk about it, then we're sending you a push notification. We're driving you back to the Venmo app. So that gives us a lot of flexibility to have a debit card where you can swipe it. We're not our brand is on the card, but we're not involved in that experience in any way. And expanding into partnering with PayPal so that we can be in PayPal checkout. Obviously, the PayPal checkout is a very tried and true product, and we want to fit into that in a small way so we don't impact it. We can do that because, for the most part, the experience that is most important for our users is in the app after the fact.
Yep. So one of the things and the big themes that we've seen, certainly in our business over the past year or so, is that mobile isn't just about mobile anymore, right? Like mobile kind of represents all connected devices, right? From connected TV to AR, VR, to the voice platforms like Alexa and Google Home. How are you guys thinking about using these kind of new and emerging platforms to further the customer experience and also drive growth?
We're really excited about voice at Kit as a way to cut through the noise and get directly to the product recommendations that are tailored just for you. So we actually have built an Alexa integration. It's a bot called Ask Kit, and you can ask Kit what's the best standing desk, and it'll tell you the one recommended by the most popular YouTuber that we have on Kit, who's MKBHD. He's got over 8 million followers on YouTube. So it's a really fun experience. It's still in experimental mode, I would say, but we do see a use case where why sit down and search and filter and go through all these tabs with voice going directly to, or getting the answer straight away of what it is you're looking for is something that we think is really powerful. And again, going back to our thesis that the best way to discover these products is through people whose opinions you trust. Once we have, massive amounts of people on Kit who are creating these kits every day and recommending their favorite products, we can use voice to make sure those get exposed to the right people at the right time.
And how do you think about building to Alexa versus Google Home? And does it carry into a transactional experience, or is it more kind of this like brochureware type?
Yeah, ultimately we would like it to build into a transactional experience. I think the reality though is that for product discovery, there is going to be that intermediary step where you want to dive in a little bit more. So what we're thinking about is email me the results or send me more information that I can then act on later. So it would be more of a like step one in the voice interface, and then maybe the actual transaction happens when someone's looking at the screen. I do think over time people will get more and more comfortable. When mobile first came out, people weren't comfortable clicking that buy button on their phones. Now everyone does it. So I think it's just a matter of time as the technology evolves and people get more comfortable with it.
Anybody else?
So similarly, I think we're really excited about voice. We've done similar things, exposing Shopify merchant products on Alexa or other interfaces. I think the broader strategy for us is definitely agree that it's experimental, and so the way we've approached it is open up our platform, provide a set of APIs that allow any of these touch points to pull product information and the transactional experience and embed it in their interface, be it a website or Alexa or whatever someone in a garage is thinking up right now. And so we're hoping that the ecosystem helps us figure this out. We have a few bets ourselves here and there at risk of confusing the audience. We have a conversational interface also called Kit, not Camille's Kit.
We get a lot of your support emails, actually.
We got Spotify, so that's interesting as well. We think of that as potentially being like the future user interface of Shopify. So instead of logging into an admin and interacting with, the various tabs and buttons that we've placed, you just kind of talk to your employee, which we call Kit, and you ask her to complete your day-to-day tasks for you. So investing in a few of these things ourselves, and then the open platform, the APIs to allow anyone in a garage to try to come up with the next interface for us.
Cool. Put you guys down there because we're getting told we're short on time here, so this is probably the last question. So any parting thoughts here?
I don't know if you want to take this.
Oh, I think for us, for this question, I think we see it as pretty experimental. We've played around with it a little bit. We've seen a good amount of success with our Siri integration, but for the most part, that's more about the phone and the watch. Mm-hmm. So we're watching it, but I think for Venmo, for that type of use case, it's a little bit more personal and one-to-one, which is why we see it more on the phone and the watch.
Yeah, and I think for us, it's understanding how those trends are being translated into commerce experiences and understanding if people are engaging with it in a way that we can that we can incorporate that into our content in a meaningful way. Again, without it becoming disruptive, because at the end of the day, the goal of our content is product discovery, like creating that shareable content, and where AR or VR falls into that path, I think it still kind of needs to work itself out. Absolutely.
Okay, well, we are out of time. Just want to thank everybody on the panel. You guys have been awesome today, so please give a round of applause. Thank you. Yeah.